What's up, everyone? Philly Insider. Hunter here with Drew. After the Phillies start out 3-1, definitely think we're all pretty happy with that to start the season. I mean, it's hard to sweep. You're always going to drop some games in 162, but hey, you can't go 161-1 if you don't go 3-1. So they're off to a good start. How you feeling, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, went pretty well for the first weekend. Had a couple of injuries that got to keep an eye on, but I think overall it was pretty good. I mean, the pitching was mostly good, other than Nola giving up a couple home runs. So
Sure.
that's encouraging. I think we all kind of knew that the starting rotation was going to be a strength, and I think we're all reinforced by that, seeing what happened this weekend.
100%. The rotation looked great. I mean, like you said, it was really just Nola. Um, it's I do. We should let's start with him because that fourth inning has never really been kind to him, obviously. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know if I have I've always been pretty pro Nola. I think you can attest to that too. Like even after his bad playoff starts, I think we both have been. But
Yeah,
I think with the rotation we have, we just have an embarrassment of riches there now to where I almost have a little Nola fatigue of like he's he might be the fifth. I mean, not the fifth guy because there's Taiwan right now, but and we'll see how he does tomorrow. Um, but if Rangers pitching well, at times Nola is almost like your fifth best guy, which is crazy.
yeah,
Which is a testament to the rotation, but it's almost a little bit like I think it's a little bit of like Nola's been here for so long. We know what we're getting out of him over 162. It's also not an even year, which he tends to perform worse on the odd years for whatever reason. So I don't know if I just have a little Nola fatigue, and I wasn't. Usually, I'm like really hoping against that fourth inning or fifth inning home run for him, but this time I was kind of just like unfazed and unsurprised by it. I don't know if you had the same vibe, but
yeah. I mean, it just kind of seems to be that way. Like I think our buddy Ben talked about it in the chat earlier. He was like, it feels like it's either boom or bust. Like he's either gonna go 6 or 7 shutout innings, or he's gonna give up 5 runs in 5 innings. It's like there's really no in between with him sometimes. So I don't
yeah,
know. I think I'm not really worried about him though. I mean, I didn't get to
yeah,
watch that game, but I from what I've heard, it was mostly fine until the home runs. So
yeah, it
I
looked
mean,
great until then.
he gives up home runs. That's one of his biggest faults. Unfortunately, he's
Yeah,
given up some of the most home runs in baseball, which is obviously just a product of playing a lot of games. He posts every day, so
sure.
it's hard to complain.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'll be fine too. Even if he has another like 4 or 5 ERA season, chances are you're going to have 2 to 3 at least of the other guys putting up 3 ERA type of seasons. So I think he'll be fine. Um, but yeah, I just want to talk about him very briefly. I think one of my big takeaways, which we were both very high on this guy before the season, Buddy Ben, not so much. Max Kepler, he looked pretty darn good the first couple games. I feel very comfortable when he comes up to the plate. I just feel like every time you're getting usually a good at bat. There were a couple not so great ones mixed in there. It's baseball; it's going to happen. He looked pretty good yesterday too, in his first home opener in Philadelphia after being in Minnesota for a few years. I'm sure that was a little bit of a different experience for him.
Yeah, I mean that ballpark was pretty packed. I mean, it was about as full as it's ever going to get. Not as loud as it's ever going to get, but I mean, yeah. Overall, though, he's been pretty great. I mean, he's hitting everything hard that he is hitting when he's not striking out, which he hasn't struck out as much as I expected so far. But it's only been 4 games, so I guess we'll see on that. But he's always been a guy that hit the ball hard, so I'm not
Yeah,
surprised by it. He just has had trouble staying healthy in his career, and if he can keep it all together this year, I mean, he could be a great player.
absolutely. And like you said, definitely has struck out a little more often in the first 4 games, small sample size, obviously, than he usually does. And he's still performing at a pretty high level so far. So, hopefully he continues to elevate us. I also, on that note, kind of on that part of the lineup, I feel like an odd sense of like, all right, I kind of don't really get worried when Cassidy struggles now because I know he will bounce back, even though it's going to be very frustrating. And that's what he did. Like he's bounced back. Usually, I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if he was like over 18 to start the season and then he bounced back. Like that's very Cassidy to do. But he bounced back, hit a couple big hits this past weekend too. So obviously had the big
Yep.
one yesterday. They went back to back. That was awesome. And yeah, like I don't know, like I don't know if we're ever going to see what we thought we would get from Cassidy, but that might still be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2021 season Castellanos, that ship has sailed. I don't think I don't think we're getting anything like that
Yeah.
But
Fair.
I mean, he's honestly like a fine like 6 or 7 hitter, which is pretty much what he's going to be at this point. And I mean, I'm okay with it. He's overpaid obviously for all the more production that he's giving you, but he plays every day. He doesn't get hurt, so I mean, there's definitely value in that to some extent. And he obviously has those runs where he's just ridiculous, like he did in the NLDS 2 years ago. So
Mhm.
I don't know. He has his goods and his bads, and obviously he's going to ground into a lot of double plays, but he's like Alec Boehm. But you know,
Yeah.
overall, he's been fine.
Yeah, and that's a good transition into Boom. We'll talk about him in a second. I do want to get to these couple comments here. Sully says, bought a Nissan Friday because of how much I despise the Rav fourth inning. I respect that for sure. Need more people to start the trend for sure. But and he talked about Stott, which I guess I'll put this on hold for a second, but we can kind of group him in with Boom since obviously the daycare guys are well, they're not apparently the daycare anymore. So I kind of like that. And there's a lot of eyes on them this year. I mean, that's the big thing is how are those guys going to produce? And Boom obviously has a more significant role, but for guys like Stott and Marsh, it's if the bottom of the lineup isn't going to be there, they're going to have issues. But as far as
Yeah,
Boom goes, we'll talk about him real quick because you mentioned grounding into a double play, and obviously he did that in a really crucial spot in Game 3, in a spot which you could not afford it. He went 0 for 5. He did hit, I would say, like 2 or 3 of the baseballs of what I remember from that game. He hit them pretty hard. And I think, look, the first game, he's the hero in that game. It's kind of poetic in a sense of after the guy who gets all the trade talks in the offseason is the guy who wins them game 1 of this season. So that was a cool thing. And then he, unfortunately had a little bit of a slide yesterday or on Sunday. But again, like you said, that's kind of what's going to happen with Bohm too. And it just doesn't help that he wears his heart on his sleeve because he's so hard on himself. And I think in turn, a lot of people are just hard on him because they see that and talk about the attitude. But on a positive note, I mean, that hit in game 1, I mean, just what a way to start the season and to get some momentum going.
yeah. I mean, he's definitely a little bit of a polarizing player for the fans at this point. But I mean, I don't know what you can really say other than the fact that he's one of the most productive hitters on the team. He's going to get a lot of opportunities and he's going to take advantage of them a lot of the time. And there's going to be times where you hit into a double play. Kind of happens whenever you're 6'5" and slow.
Yeah.
It's he's going to hit for a lot of power, like not home runs necessarily, but he had 40 doubles last year. So, I mean, I did predict that, by the way. I did predict that he would have 40
Yeah, Drew did
doubles
predict that.
last year.
We can pull out the pod.
Yeah.
That was a good prediction. Really good
And
prediction.
anyway, yeah. I mean, Bohm, he's obviously he's a key piece to this team. So, I mean, him being productive for the full season this year is going to be pretty key. I mean, you saw what he did in the first half last year, and the team's record reflected that. He was an all-star, and the team was by far in first place for most of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really is. That's a huge part of this team is how he hits. And I think it's helped him being sandwiched in between 2 righties now this year rather than having that responsibility of between 2 lefties where last year he had Turner in front of him in the 2-hole. Much different. No, he was the 4-hole last year, but much different spots where he's had Harper and Schwarber in between, like he's been in between those 2 in the lineup no matter what, which I think has been really helpful for him. And shout out Schwarber too. I mean, hits in the 4-hole, he goes crazy. Hits in the leadoff spot, he goes crazy. I mean, so far
Yeah.
this year, it hasn't mattered. It looks like June Schwarber right now, which usually he gets off to a slow start. But
Yeah.
and speaking of Boom, he was using that torpedo bat yesterday too. So
He
definitely
did
an
have a hit
interesting
with it.
storyline. Yeah, yeah, an interesting storyline going around baseball right now. And when Bryce hit that one to the wall, one of my buddies said, "Man, should have been using a torpedo bat." So we'll see. I think they have some. They definitely have ordered some from what I've heard. I think we've all seen that on Twitter at this point. So we'll see how that goes. And Nerio, welcome all the way from Italy. It's usually great to see you in here. But yeah, I mean, look, I'll give my brief thoughts on the torpedo bats. It's already really hard. It's hard enough to hit in today's game with guys like Ben Joyce throwing 105 with movement. So if you hit the ball in the barrel, I don't mind them getting rewarded for it a little bit more if that's what it does. And it's within the rules. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an opinion on it yet, to be honest. It's way too early to tell. But
Sure.
I mean, Ellie did help me out last night with 2 home runs using torpedo bats, so he was helping my fantasy team. So I like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have an opinion on it yet. I think it'll
Sure.
take a while for me to form one, honestly.
Yeah, I want to shout out my buddy Joe. He is a Yankees fan, so he got to enjoy the torpedo bats on Saturday this past week. But and honestly, to that end though, maybe the Brewers are just bad. I mean, they looked terrible yesterday, from what I heard. I didn't get to watch the game, but um, yeah, they might not win. They might not be that NL Central leader again this year. We'll see. It's early to say that, but you can't just do like they've been relying on the same recipe year in and year out, and it's gotten them as far as the first round. So
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see.
I don't know at what point they give it up, but I mean
Yeah,
they traded away their closer, so that's going to take away some wins too. So I don't know.
yeah.
I think they're just kind of in the point of where they're going to rebuild.
Yeah, and that was interesting on that note. Devin Williams closing out the game. Trent Grisham, kind of a 200 IQ play, but also against the rules, uses his hat to knock the ball down in center. Did you end up seeing that, Drew?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, there was a ball in center field. Williams got into a little bit of trouble on opening day. And instead of trying to barehand it, Grisham took off his hat and knocks the ball down. And by rule, I believe it's like you get 3 bases extra if your hat is used, which is a crazy rule. I didn't even know that was a rule until then. Umpires didn't notice it though, so it didn't end up mattering. But I just thought that was a funny storyline from game like opening day. But
Yeah,
I'm getting kind of sidetracked now. But yeah, shout out my buddy Joe, big Yankees fan in the chat. But yeah, so yeah, we were talking about Schwarber a little bit, talking a little bit about Bohm. I mean, the lineup overall, and we can talk about Stott a little bit too, but the lineup overall, it's just been very quiet while starting pitchers have been in the game. That's definitely a concern of mine right now. I mean, obviously the shadows have played a part in that. A lot of their games have been midday. Not all of them have had the sun. I don't know if the Xfinity sign played a part in the batter's eye at Citizens Bank Park. Not a huge fan of that. But we'll wrap up with some of the CBP renovations, I guess, at the end of this pod. That'll be fun. But point being, there's probably some other factors, but I mean, Herman Marquez, that's a guy who hasn't really been healthy the past couple of years, and maybe he bounces back in a big way this year. But definitely a little disappointing that they haven't really jumped on starters. And again, it's so early in the year. We're overreacting to everything right now, but that's just one of the takeaways I think a lot of Phillies fans have had so far is they've jumped on the bullpens. They have not done much against the starters. So not something to panic about, but a little disappointing.
yeah. I mean, whenever you face better teams, you're not going to be able to get away with that because they have much better bullpens than the Nationals and the Rockies. Obviously,
Yeah, right.
the Nationals are a disaster. Even their best relievers are not good. I mean, Finnegan is kind of like okay. He's going to have a lot of blow up outings, but he's okay sometimes. But outside of that, the Nationals pretty much have nothing. The Rockies really have nothing. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
They're really bad. I mean, they're the Rockies at this point. It's kind of like what you're accustomed to if you're a Rockies fan, I guess. But yeah, I think they definitely need to start hitting starting pitchers because you can't let the other team build momentum for 6 innings and then just decide you want to play the game. You got to start
Yeah.
off hot in games sometimes, and that was like a theme of the Phillies last year. That's like what
100%.
propelled them to where they were, like halfway through the season. They were jumping on starting pitchers, and I think they're going to get back to that, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I did think it was funny. I don't know if you saw what Bud Black said before the game yesterday about the new seats getting at, or like the new indoor part of the bullpens getting added in. He's like, that's not something that's going to bother the Rockies. All right. I mean, I don't know if that like really did affect them. They made a point. They sat outside the whole time, and it was a nice day, so I don't blame them. But my thought when I saw that was like I wasn't really like offended or anything. I was just like, you're not going to be here in October, so I wouldn't really. If I were you, I wouldn't be super worried about that. Like,
Yeah, it's hard
and like,
hard to chirp people that you don't even know who they are because the
yeah,
Rockies, nobody knows who any of them are. So
no,
yeah,
yeah. I don't even know if Daniel Bard is still in the bullpen or not there. Like,
I don't I don't
I
know.
couldn't tell you their relievers because I know they traded Pierce Johnson over to the Braves a year or two ago. Yeah, there's I know Victor Vodnik. That's the only one I know just because he has kind of a notable name. I mean, it's kind of a cool name, I guess. But
Yeah.
um,
Speaking of the Braves, they suck.
yeah, really bad. I had to
Yeah,
get that one in there for sure.
yeah, they've had a bad start, and it's not getting any better. I mean, they just lost Ronaldo Lopez and Jurickson Profar, so like insult to injury.
Yeah, yeah. I do. I like, dude, the Profar one was like, that was kind of bittersweet for me because that was the guy I said we needed the whole off season. I was like, I would love if we could get that guy on a short term deal. Um, yeah, Yeah, that panned out well. I mean, obviously, I couldn't have foreseen that coming, but and also so early in the season too. Like that is I don't know what happened or what the context is behind that, but it's not just the 80 games. You can't play in the playoffs now if you make it there. Like that really hurts them. So
Yep.
they're in a bad spot, man. They still are without Strider for a little bit. He's rehabbing right now. Yeah, that's I wouldn't want to be 0-5. We started 0-5 the one year in I think it was 2022, but
Yeah.
the vibes were a little better.
Yeah, I don't think the Braves are going to be winning the division this year. I just don't see it for that roster. They've I don't know. They took a step back last year in the regular season, and it seems like so far this regular season they're taking a bigger step back. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because they have injuries, but anything can happen. You know, they could end up with around a 500 record if they keep getting injured. You never know. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a rough start for them.
100%. That's definitely a great thing to bring up. Yeah, I don't know with them, man. They're in an interesting spot right now where they've had a lot of the pieces for the past couple of years, but are some of those guys maybe not all of them, but like Chris Sale, is he going to repeat what he did last year at his age? That's really hard to do. Um, I don't know. I don't know if he can do that again. And I heard I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. I heard his first start did not necessarily go super well, but um, again, early in the season, we'll see. There's a lot of time left, but definitely some things going wrong there right now. Regardless, even if they were like 2-2, losing Lopez and Profar really, really hurts you. Regardless of like, even if they started 5-0, that's a big hit to their team. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Again, it's crazy to me. I mean, Profar plays what, like 3 games with them, and that happens. That is just unbelievable. I
Yeah.
was shocked when I saw that news. But
Yeah, and then he said that he had no idea. Like, how do you have no idea? Like,
I
I
know.
just don't
Yeah.
understand. Like, you're a professional athlete. A doctor's not going to prescribe you that because they know that you can't take that.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, that's a joke to me, but whatever. That's
And
beyond the concept.
you should be anything you like medication or anything you need to take should definitely like it should be ran through the team no matter what, like the team doctors and all that. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that team, but they're definitely not on like high on my worry radar right now. So,
yep,
um, and speaking of Ronaldo Lopez and Sosa getting opportunities because of injuries, it is nice. Like if the Phillies do have an injury, they do have some more IL spots than in our fantasy league, true. But Sosa definitely, yeah, like Sully said, making the most of his chances with Trey Turner, a little banged up right now. And Trey had a great at bat. He was 0-2 in the count, fought back, got that walk yesterday to help spark that rally. But man, Sosa, you just don't find too many utility players like him, man. Again, obviously over a long period of time, it's not sustainable, but every time he comes in, he seems to provide a spark. He didn't necessarily do it in the playoffs last year. I understand that, but guys like him are so freaking valuable in the regular season, and you just don't see utility guys like him come around too often.
yeah. I mean, he's selfless. That's pretty much he'll do anything to win. He'll play any position. Like he'd probably catch if they asked him to, even though he wouldn't be any good at it. He'd go back there and he'd definitely try. I mean, he's definitely a rare breed as far as like guys coming off the bench and just destroying baseballs whenever they're called upon to start. I saw a picture yesterday on Twitter. It was a picture of Barry Bonds, and it said Edmundo Sosa when Trey Turner is hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
legit. Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
it's
it's
crazy.
true.
He literally carried this team for like 2 or 3 weeks last year.
Yeah.
Not many guys that come off the bench that can do that.
No, and he's done it like as good as Cody Clemens has been. Like Cody Clemens has been done a very respectable job when he's been asked to step in. Sosa's been like even better than that. Like
Yeah,
way better. Yeah, which
there was a point last year where they were both playing. I think, right?
Trey and Cody, or Trey and sorry, Edmundo and Cody, or Edmundo and Trey.
Yeah. Edmundo and Cody.
I think so. There probably was at some point. I mean, I feel like May and June is always it gets wacky sometimes with the injuries. So, and there was a point last year where people were debating whether or not they should put Edmundo and Trey on the field at the same time too. So,
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. And shout out my guys, my kids who I coached last year, Jackson, Brownie. Good to see you in here. Sorry, had to shout them out real quick, but love you guys too. Miss you guys for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say about Edmundo. He's electric. He provides a spark for this team whenever he's on the field, and he plays with a lot of energy. So it's definitely nice to see.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. Yeah, Amundo. I definitely was like a little too high on him when he first got here. That first year when got here and he helped us go to the World Series was crazy. But
Yep.
no, it's cool to see what he's done. And yeah, I guess like other notes on the lineup. I don't have much. Well, we can just talk on the pitching staff real quick because you mentioned at the start, like they've just been awesome. I mean, Sanchez yesterday really didn't make too many bad pitches. The thought I had yesterday watching Sanchez was this guy's going to throw a no hitter at some point this year. He is that good. I just don't have too many words to say about him anymore because we just, for lack of a better word, we glaze him every single podcast. But like he deserves it, man. Like he is incredible. That changeup is gross. The fastball being 97, 98 now, creating distance from that is just so tough. It's so tough for hitters to it's so tough for them to plan for both those pitches. And then you factor in the slider too. Like it's simple. He's got 2 to 3 pitches that work really well. Even if one of those pitches isn't working well, his changeup's going to be working no matter what. So it's going to be tough to hit him. And also just the spots he was hitting yesterday too. Goodness gracious, we got something special with him there. I know he didn't, his numbers didn't necessarily like they weren't eye popping, but it just if you watched the game yesterday, I think you saw like this dude has it. I'm super excited about him. Luzardo looked great too. He really didn't make too many bad pitches. 11 Ks on Saturday. Wow, that's a really good first debut to have.
He was mowing them down. I mean, him 100%. And Sanchez, they were pretty outstanding. I don't know what else you can really say. I mean, they have high expectations. Obviously, those two. I think everybody knows how good they can be. And Luzardo, obviously, his numbers last year were pretty bad, but that's not indicative to the kind of pitcher he is. I think he had like a 5 ERA. That's crazy. He's definitely going to be one of the better left-handed starters in baseball whenever he's healthy. I mean, you don't see guys throwing 98, 99 all the time.
Yeah. You mentioned it in our chat. His velo was up in that game on Saturday. Changeup was good. Sweeper looked incredible. Don't have too much to say on him either. I'm really excited to see how he continues to progress under Caleb Cotham down the road. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about there. Wheeler, I have nothing to say on him because he performed how I expected him to perform on opening day. He was incredible. Somehow Mackenzie Gore was better than him, but Wheeler was awesome. I don't think long term he'll be better than him, but on opening day he was better for whatever reason. Probably just because of the shadows, but.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty obvious that the shadows played a huge part in that. I mean, Mackenzie Gore last year, we kind of had his number. It felt like we kind of roughed him up a few times. So I don't think our team just forgot how to hit him. You know, he's not that much different than he was last year. So I mean, I'm not really worried about that. But anyway, Wheeler. I mean, what do you say? He's the pinnacle of consistency. It's like every time he goes out there, it's just 5 or 6 shutout innings at least.
Yeah, 100%. I don't have anything to add to that. And as far as the lineup goes, there's not really too many guys we didn't talk about. Marsh looked really bad on an opening day against lefties. That was rough. That was hard to watch. And I think he did have a hit against a lefty in the game Saturday. I didn't get to watch the whole game Saturday, but I don't think he instilled much confidence to start the season that he's going to hit lefties. But they're letting him go, so we'll see. He's going to get his opportunities, that's for sure. And then only other person I think we didn't really mention was we didn't talk a ton about Stott so far. I still think he's looked all right. I still feel pretty confident in him. I think his bats still look fairly good. I'm going to be a little more patient with him just because I think it is in there. Like I think he does have it. And then Romuto was the guy I was kind of alluding to. He's had a really bad start to the season, to be quite honest. A little bit concerned about him. Think he should probably move back in the lineup. That's my overreaction, I guess, of opening week.
Yeah, I mean it's not entirely surprising because he wasn't exactly very good last year either. So I don't know. It's a contract year, so it's very hard to say what they're going to do with him because if he has a bad year at the plate this year, I could see him letting him walk. I mean, if Marchand has a good year and he stays healthy the whole year, they might try to play him next year. I don't really know, but JT has to be better, and he knows that. Everybody knows that. I think he'll move down the lineup at some point if he keeps hitting like this. And even at his worst, I'd say he's still a decent catcher, right? Like, because he's pretty good defensively still. And I mean, given his age, you kind of expect some regression, especially from a catcher. So I don't know. It's really early yet, but not good early signs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit concerning. You just hope it doesn't get to a point where it's like, are there other catchers who are productive? Because I think it's going to be very hard to get there. And um, yeah, again, as he's played 3 games, I know he had a slight injury. I forget exactly. I think he hit the ball off his toe in the
Yeah.
one game. Yeah, Marchand came in. Marchand had a really nice single on Sunday. That's my one of my positive takeaways from the Sunday game that was kind of unwatchable. He had a really nice single up the middle. So um, yeah,
He's
give
played
him that.
good when he's been in the MLB. So
Yeah,
it's kind of strange because he doesn't hit whenever he's in the minors, but
yeah.
when he's in the MLB, man, he rakes.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. No, yeah, I'm like very excited to see how Marchand plays in his starts because I think they're definitely going to be more frequent as the year goes on. Not
Yep.
because JT, even if JT was playing well, I think that'd be the case just because you got to get him off his feet. But yeah, I don't have really much else to say, man. I mean, that kind of wraps up like everyone we've talked about everyone who we've seen so far. We'll see how Taiwan does tomorrow. Obviously, there'll be a lot to talk about with that, I'm sure. And yeah, again, it's 4 games, so all these are overreactions. There's only so much you can say. We didn't even talk about
Yep.
Harper. I mean, Harper's had some big hits already. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just who he is. He's just coming.
Yeah, he hits the ball hard. No question about it. He's been doing it so far this year. I mean, there's
Yeah.
what do you say? I mean, he's been here long enough. We all know exactly what he is. He's the MVP. So
Yep.
it's really goes unsaid with him anymore. Same with Wheeler. Like you don't even really need to talk about those guys because they're so good.
Yep. And honestly, I think with those two, it's just as long as they're doing what they're supposed to do, that's ultimately like, yeah, like those guys have impacts in the big games. But winning and losing a World Series comes down to how the role players are gonna step up in those moments because we know those 2 guys are gonna be what they are, like in a great way. They're
Yeah,
awesome. So um, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. And I don't know. I mean, I think there's probably still some sort of correlation there. I wouldn't rule it out yet, but we'll see. We'll see what happens when he gets a hold of a torpedo bat.
yeah, yeah. True, true.
But yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I've been very pleased with how they played, and I'm very pleased that even though they didn't jump on starters and they haven't played their best baseball, that they're still winning games so far. So I think
Yep.
that's my positive spin on some of the lack of production in the first 5, 6 innings.
Yeah. I mean, I like you said, it's early yet, so I mean, I don't really have any concerns. Give me like 2 or 3 weeks yet, and maybe I'll be in panic mode as far as the offense goes in the first 6 innings of games. But right now, I'm not worried. So I mean,
Yep.
yeah, I mean they played good. They're playing good, even though they're not at their best. So it's definitely exciting.
Yeah, sorry, Taiwan pitches Thursday. I was incorrect. So Wheeler will
Mm,
get tomorrow because of the off days. So that'll be good.
yeah,
Um, so they should. I mean, and they're facing a lefty tomorrow in the lineup too. So the guys hit like they're supposed to. Take advantage of Kyle Freeland tomorrow. Hopefully, should be get another series win locked up. And again, like I know it's early, but the more distance you can create early on between you and some of these other teams, I mean, it always helps. Always
yeah,
helps,
absolutely, 100%.
especially the Braves, because
Yeah,
I'm sure the Braves like even if they don't really contend with us for the division, I'm sure they're going to make some sort of push for a playoff spot. They always do. So the
yeah,
more distance you create between us and them, great.
yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got, man. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think we got it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate y'all. Got some fun stuff planned for the season, so keep an eye out for that. We're definitely going to be on here a little more often now that the season has begun. And yeah, great start for the Phils. Hopefully, next time we talk to you guys, we are. I don't know, like maybe we'll be 6-2. Maybe we'll maybe we'll be 8-1. I don't know, something like that. I
Yeah.
don't even know how many games there are, but see you guys soon. And thank you guys for watching. God bless y'all.